Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. I began to suspect that something was wrong with my wife, Linda. It wasn't obvious at first, but after knowing her for 17 years, 15 of which we had been married, I started to notice changes. We live a typical Scandinavian life. Our home is cozy, located not far from the county center, and we have 2 children, an 8-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter. We both work full-time, she at the town hall, and I in a small consulting firm. Our relationship started off normally. We met during evening classes on advanced Microsoft Excel, and 2 years later, we got married. Like any marriage, we had our ups and downs, but I never considered them out of the ordinary. At least, that's what I thought. It wasn't until 2 months after our 15th anniversary that I began to notice something was off. Linda became less interested in intimacy, not entirely distant, but instead of sharing meaningful moments together, she preferred brief, detached touches. Then there was another shift. She started spending more money on clothes, which was unusual for her. Additionally, she became uncharacteristically critical, nitpicking me over trivial things. This wasn't like her. Linda always enjoyed spending a couple of nights a week with her friends, doing aerobics or playing badminton. Occasionally, there were nights when one of her friends wanted to celebrate something, but those instances were rare. I started paying closer attention to her actions, but didn't notice anything unusual in her routine. One day, my colleague Eric noticed my mood and pointed out that I seemed troubled, especially concerning my marriage. He suggested that it's better to know the truth than to continue feeling uneasy. I admitted that I had thought about hiring a private detective to figure out what was going on, but 2 serious obstacles stood in my way. First, there were no private detectives in our area, or even the entire county. Second, even if there were, I didn't have the money to pay for their services. Nevertheless, I assured Eric that I would do everything I could to figure out what was happening between me and Linda. The turning point came on a Saturday, shortly after my conversation with Eric. We were invited to dinner at friends who lived just outside the city. The whole evening, Linda was her usual affectionate self, and even during the taxi ride home, she remained warm and attentive. Naturally, I hoped the night might end with intimacy, but as soon as we got home and the babysitter left, her behavior changed. She coldly said, "If you were expecting something tonight, forget about it." Frustrated, I forced a smile. What else could I expect from a wife who had become so distant? I didn't push the issue, but I struggled to fall asleep that night. Lying in bed, I began to formulate a plan. By Sunday morning, I had signed up for an anonymous email service. After testing it out, I sent the following message to Linda's work email on Monday. "Dear Mrs. Ekman, I regret to inform you that I have evidence of your affair. While this is sad for your husband, I admire your lover for spending time with such a beautiful woman. However, I'm willing to remain silent if you meet my demands. I want you to sit alone at the Crab Cafe today, Monday, from 4:30 p.m. to 5 p.m., with an envelope containing $1,000. A friend will approach and ask, 'Aren't you Alexander's sister?' You must reply, 'No, I am his wife,' and hand over the envelope. Your true friend." I deliberately chose $1,000, not too much to seem like serious blackmail, but not too little for her to withdraw without attracting attention. That Monday, I casually suggested to Eric that we take a long coffee break at the Crab Cafe. He agreed, and we arrived just before 4:30 p.m. To my surprise, Linda was there, sitting alone at a table. What shocked me even more was seeing Martin Miller, one of her colleagues from the town hall, sitting a few tables away from her. Martin, who is married to one of Linda's closest friends, had been with us at dinner the previous Saturday, and I hadn't noticed anything unusual between him and Linda at the time. Overcome with rage, I couldn't contain myself. I shouted across the cafe, "What's going on here? Why are both of you here, not at work? And why aren't you sitting together if you're both free?" Martin immediately stood up and left without saying a word. Linda, following his example, also walked out silently, leaving me alone to process the scene that had just unfolded. When I told Eric that we might have caught Linda with another man, he was just as puzzled as I was. Wasting no time, I called Martin's wife, Cecilia, to see if she could shed some light on why both my wife and her husband had taken the day off and ended up in the same cafe, sitting apart from each other. I voiced my suspicions, saying that if I didn't hear a convincing explanation, I would be certain that Linda was cheating on me and that Martin was probably involved. Cecilia promised to talk to Martin and let me know what she found out. Martin was a charming man, always impeccably dressed, polite, and known for being the life of any gathering. But for those of us who had known him for years, Martin looked quite different. Later that evening when I got home, I checked our bank account and noticed a suspicious withdrawal of $1,000, which had been returned on the same day. This only fueled my doubts, but I had other concerns on my mind. Earlier, during my lunch break, I had gone to the courthouse to pick up divorce papers. I sat down and started filling them out, realizing that my next steps were becoming clearer. When Linda returned home, she was furious. "You made a fool of yourself at the cafe!" she shouted. "I can explain everything if you just let me speak," she continued, but I had no patience. "I'm tired of hearing excuses," I responded coldly. "Here are the divorce papers. Just sign them. The terms are fair. You'll get half of everything and no lawyer will get you more without costing you more than it's worth." Linda's anger only grew, and she snapped, "That's the first smart thing you've done in a while." Without looking at the details, she angrily signed the papers and spat, "It'll be a relief to be with a real man and not you." That was the end of it. She stormed out of the house, and I didn't care where she went. Later that night, Cecilia called me, crying. Martin had broken down and confessed to the affair with Linda. He begged her for forgiveness, but Cecilia didn't know what to do. She told him to stay with his parents for a couple of weeks while she made her decision. I informed her that Linda and I had already signed the divorce papers, and that was that. Although I knew Linda's fantasy of Martin as her knight in shining armor was ridiculous, I kept those thoughts to myself. After the call, I gathered all of Linda's belongings and moved them into the guest room. When Linda came home and saw what I had done, she exploded with anger. I mentioned that I had told Cecilia about what I had seen at the cafe. As expected, this only made her angrier. The next day, something unexpected happened. When I got home from work, Linda approached me, her tone softened. "Alexander," she began, "I'm so sorry for what I said yesterday. I was stressed and said things I didn't mean. You're the one I truly love, and I regret what happened. Can we please get through this? We're adults, and we can work it out. Just tear up the divorce papers, and I'll explain everything." I looked her in the eyes and said, "The papers are already filed in court, and for your information, I'm fully aware of your affair with Martin. After you left yesterday, he confessed everything to Cecilia, and she called me. Your so-called real man turned out to be a sobbing mess, begging for forgiveness and claiming that you seduced him. Doesn't sound like much of an upgrade, does it?" Linda's expression changed and she stammered, "Did Cecilia really tell you about me and Martin?" "Yes," I confirmed. "And now everything makes sense. I suspected it for a while, but I didn't have proof until Martin confessed." With a confused look on her face, she asked, "But how did you make me sign the divorce papers before Cecilia told you about the affair?" I sighed. "I made that decision last Saturday. After a long, sleepless night, I realized that divorce was the only way out. By the time Martin confessed, the days of Martin flaunting his flashy image with expensive watches and driving around in a luxury car are over, the very symbols of wealth he once used to dazzle those around him. If it was these material things that caught your attention, now is the time to reconsider. If you have genuine feelings for this spineless man, soon you'll have to foot the bill for his extravagant whims." In response, she said, "I made a serious mistake that I can never justify. I allowed myself to be seduced and misled by this lying snake. I would rather spend the rest of my life alone than be near him again." Soon rumors spread that Martin was furious when Cecilia told him that she had filed for divorce and made it clear that their marriage was beyond repair. This might explain why the day after the divorce papers were signed, Linda came to me in tears, asking for forgiveness and begging me to reconsider my decision. Ever since Martin saw me in the cafe, he had been avoiding any encounters. The day after his confession, The doctor put him on medical leave due to stress and related health issues. As I had expected, 2 weeks later, Cecilia also filed for divorce, and Martin never returned to his job at City Hall. He stayed on medical leave for several months and then left the city, taking a new job elsewhere. After that, Martin and Linda never saw each other again, not even for a brief conversation. Linda found an apartment in a shabby neighborhood, though it took 3 months to complete the paperwork. During this time, we agreed that she would stay in the guest room of our house, and neither of us would start new relationships until the divorce was finalized. Despite the tension, this arrangement worked out better than we had expected. Then, a couple of months after filing for divorce, something unexpected happened with Linda. One Saturday evening, she approached me with a request to keep an important financial matter secret. I agreed, and she confessed, "You've probably heard that someone in town recently won the lottery. Well, that winner is me. I won $5 million, more than enough to solve all my problems." Since we were still legally married, she asked, "Are you going to claim half?" I replied, "Congratulations. No, I don't want a penny. I don't expect anything from you. My only advice is to set aside some money for the kids, for their education, future homes, cars, and help when they decide to marry." She looked at me as if surprised. "You really won't take a penny?" she asked again. "Yes. When we were together, all I ever wanted was your love. But I have a feeling that when Martin finds out about this, he'll come crawling to you, begging for forgiveness." She reassured me. "He'll never know. You're the only one who has this information, and you promised to keep it a secret." Then she added, "Despite the promises I broke to you, I know that you're a better person than I am, and will keep yours." That was the end of our conversation, and life returned to its usual cold rhythm. Linda left town for a few days that same week, returning on Saturday. That evening, she asked if we could have dinner together, as she had something important to discuss. I agreed. Our children were spending the night at friends' houses. The dinner was incredible. My favorite dishes and excellent wine, which immediately raised my suspicions. I began to think that this was some kind of gesture to win back my love, and I wondered how she had calculated the price of my forgiveness. When we moved on to dessert, she shared the first news. "I followed your advice and created trust funds for our children." I replied, "You are a wonderful mother. These funds will be a huge help for them in the future." We moved on to lighter topics, chatting about everyday things. Eventually, we settled on the couch, sipping coffee and brandy, when she said the following: "I want to apologize for being such a fool, a cheap, naive idiot who destroyed our family by betraying and humiliating the best man I've ever known." She continued, "To this day, I can't explain why I allowed Martin to lead me astray so easily. I deeply regret it, and there hasn't been a single night where I haven't despised myself for my stupidity. I know that money can't buy your forgiveness or love, but I also know that courts often award compensation for emotional distress. Since no court would consider what I've done to you, I've decided to be my own prosecutor, judge, and jury, and I've ruled that all the money left after setting up the children's funds is yours." I was in shock. "What have you done?" I finally asked. "I can't accept your money. I'll give it back." She shook her head firmly. "You can't give it back. The lawyers I hired to arrange all this have ensured that it's legally yours, without any conditions. I don't expect anything in return, and I have no regrets. I'm not asking for anything, and I don't want anything. This is simply what I had to do before I allowed myself to get involved in that foolish affair with Martin. What else could I have done? My love wasn't a commodity, and Linda wasn't trying to buy it. She didn't set conditions or make demands, and she didn't ask for forgiveness. All she talked about was her desire to fix our relationship. She didn't try to kiss me. Although I was overwhelmed by everything happening, I began to understand. Her feelings for me were real. Linda was a smart, beautiful woman and the mother of our children. Deep down, I realized that she still loved me. Could I find someone better than her? Probably not. Could I find anyone who could even come close to her? Definitely not. The real question was whether I could forgive her. I didn't know the answer, but why not try? I made a choice. I said to her, "Linda, we are still married, and we need to talk about what happened and what will happen next." But let's leave the talk about the future for later, after this wonderful dinner. Doesn't that seem fair? She nodded in agreement and quietly said, "Yes." I continued, "Divorce is painful, and it's even harder now when I see how much you really love me and how deeply you regret what happened." Tears streamed down her face and she cried, "Every night I prayed that you would forgive me, that you'd give me another chance." I moved closer and hugged her. "We're still married. Shouldn't we seriously consider staying that way?" She looked into my eyes and quietly asked, "Is this real, or am I dreaming?" "It's real," I told her, "because I want to believe that the Linda I knew before Martin is still here. I missed her more than you can imagine." She hugged me tightly and whispered, "You won't regret this." That night could only end one way, with deep, passionate intimacy. I did everything I could to make that night unforgettable for her, and she responded in kind. It was like we were reliving our wedding night. In the days and months that followed, it felt like we were newlyweds again. But the divorce happened. 2 months later, she accidentally ran into Martin and once again gave in to temptation. They ended up in a hotel room, unaware that I was tracking Linda's movements. That night, everything was decided. I burst into the room where they were passionately involved and recorded everything on my phone. "I'm sorry, darling, I didn't mean to, it was an accident," Linda shouted after me, but there was no second chance for her. In court, I won. I got 60% of all our savings and full custody of the children. I was furious with her, and in my anger, I sent the video of her and Martin in a compromising position to everyone who knew them. I did it so she could feel what I had felt. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.